welcome back to the Always Reading Book Club. It is your girl Kiki Reader. And guess what? We're jumping right back into a new series. This is going to be the Crossfire series by Sylvia Day. And the first book in the series is Bared to You. Now, I think this is like the third time I read this series. It came out I think maybe a little over 10 years ago. Absolutely love the characters. I love the plot. I love everything about these books. I really do. This was one of the first series that I read after I read 50 Shades of Grey. And I love this so much more. Even though 50 Shades was a great read, definitely a better read than the movies. But this right here, totally loved it. I hope they can turn this into a movie someday. It's absolutely amazing. So we have Eva Trammell and Carrie. They're best friends. They have recently relocated to New York City. They're from San Diego. And she is actually set to start a new job the next day. So she's going to be an assistant at an advertising firm called, I think it's Watersfield and Lehman. And so it's in the building called the Crossfire building. Hint, hint, Crossfire. And she's going to do kind of like a dry run to her job. I don't know why, but you know how some people just kind of want to see how it is or how long it takes them to get there. So she goes to the building, and when she gets there, a woman drops everything out of her purse. And she helps her pick it up. Of course, she looks up. She sees the most beautiful man ever. And he's just staring at her. And she's just beyond taken. Oh my gosh. And so she describes him. She says he looks like a sex god. So he, of course, takes her breath away. They feel electricity as they touch because the badge she had, it fell. He picked it up and gave it to her. So their hands kind of touched. And, it was pure electricity. Beautiful. So he gives her badge and she gets the hell out of there. So she runs outside to catch her breath. And so the next day she goes to work. Everything runs smoothly. She's waiting to go in the elevator. And guess who's in there when it opens up? It's the sex god. She gets on the elevator and he was like, "How was your first day, Eva?" So he knows her name, but of course he would because she did drop her badge. He looked at it. So that's not that weird. She was like, "It was good. And how was yours?" And the whole time she's thinking, "Oh my gosh, how did he know this was my first day?" So he was like, "Well, it wasn't my first day, but it was still a pretty good day." So the next day she goes to work and Mark, her boss, is telling her about a new account that they're trying to get for a vodka company. So Mark asks Eva to come with him to a meeting that he has to pitch his ideas. And so she goes. And we find out the sex god is Gideon Cross, the owner of Cross Industries. So this is, of course, the person she's going to be having a meeting with. So, of course, she bumps into him. They do their presentation. They give the different scenarios. And then Gideon turns to Eva, and he has been staring at the whole time. And he's like, "Which one do you think would be the best?" And Eva was like, "All of them are amazing pitches, And he was like, "Again, which one do you like?" And she said, "Well, I like the one with the affordable luxury. I think it resonates with a larger demographic." And so Gideon goes, "Okay, that's the one we're going to go with." So they leave, and then Gideon asks Eva, "Hold on just a moment, stay back." So Mark leaves. He goes back down the elevator, and then Gideon asks Eva, "Are you sleeping with anyone?" And she was like, first of all, total shock. Then she's like, "Why are you asking me that?" And he says, "Because I want to fuck you, and I want to make sure that there isn't anyone in the way of that." And I was like, that was hot. I'm not even gonna lie. That was straightforward, and that was hot. So then she comes, then of course she's like, "What makes you think I want you?" And he just kind of looks at her like, "Yeah, right." She goes home. She tells Carrie everything that happened that day. And then, of course, Carrie's like, "I think you should do it. Go for that, So her and Carrie, she works out a lot, things like that. And she wanted to try, when she went to the gym, she had wanted to try Krav Maga in this Brooklyn studio. And Carrie goes with her so she can sign up. So the next day, she gets a call from Stanton, who's her stepfather, and he asked her to come and have lunch with him. And so he sends his driver, and she goes. So he sits down, she sits down to have lunch with him, and he says, I understand you want to do Krav Maga, but, we'll have to do it in a safer environment. Your mother worries a lot. She was sick with worry last night. So Eva's sitting there like, okay, first of all, how did she know? And then we come to find out that her mother has put a tracker on her cell phone. And she completely lost it. And she was like, this has got to stop. This is too much. I understand she's worried about me, but this is over and beyond. So both Eva and Carrie, the way they all bonded was because they met in group therapy. Because they both have trauma. And we'll just say that because I don't want the video to get dinged. So they both come from trauma. So her mother worries about her over and beyond because the trauma occurred when her mother was married to her previous stepfather, and he had a son, and there were things that occurred. So the mother is extremely protective of her, constantly worried about her. So she's like, again, I get it, but this is too much. There's no boundaries. This is just not okay. And Stanton loves her mother beyond anything, and he will do anything she wants. And so unfortunately, he helps with the behavior. So whether he thinks it's wrong or not doesn't matter. He will do anything for her. And so therefore, if she has an unhealthy thing, he's going to satisfy it because he just will not tell her mother no. So she leaves the phone at the receptionist desk, and then she goes back to, this was so neat to read, Dwayne Reed's Walgreens. I love it because I saw those when I was up there. I even went to them twice, I think. So she goes there to pick up some candy because she needs something. And she goes back to work, and then of course while she's going up, she sees Gideon. And he of course wants to talk and is like, there's just so much there's just a lot of sexual attraction, and we just need to do something about this. He's like, but I don't date, and she's like, well, I don't either, but still, you just can't be asking me, to fuck like that. You know what I mean? And so they go back and forth. He takes her up to the office, and they continue going back and forth. And then he was like, fuck it. He just started kissing her, and she was just gone. It was beyond euphoric, and the woman was going. So they were about to screw on his couch. And then the intercom, his assistant came through and was like, your 2 o'clock's here. So they had to stop. So both are like, fuck, but for different reasons. She's mad at herself for giving in to that point, and he's mad that he's being disturbed. So he tells her he wants to see her after work, and she's like, nope. And he lets her know we can work out all the logistics of everything. And she tells him she'll talk to him Monday on her lunch break. And she figured that was more of a controlled thing, because after work, you know, what are you going to do? You're kind of stuck with him. But if you just go on your lunch break, it's a confined hour. So he finally concedes and agrees to that. So then her mother calls her, and she goes off on her mother, and she lets her know that, she knows about the fact that she's been tracking her phone. Her mother gets super quiet. And then she's like, I think it's time I attend a session with you. And her mother's like, okay, that'll be great. So then when she gets off the phone, she gets another phone call, but it's Gideon. And they go back and forth. And then she goes home and she meets Carrie. He has a new guy named Trey. And she tells Carrie everything that happened that day with Gideon. Carrie suggests, you know what, let's go out, let's go clubbing. So they went club hopping in Tribeca, and then while they're at one of the clubs, they're about to go dancing with 2 other guys, and then Gideon puts his hand on Eva's shoulder and says, this one's mine. I was like, shit. So, again, they start their discussion of how Gideon. We find out Gideon owns the building that she lives in, as well as another club that she had attended earlier. So, the reason he knows Carrie's name and knew how to find them, this is creepy too, is because Carrie paid for the drink, so he saw, it's his fucking club, so he can see everything. So he knows, okay, that's Carrie. And then he looked her up, and so he has a lot of info on her. And so he's, she's saying, I don't want to be in a relationship, but at the same time she wants to like spend time together because she needs to feel a connection. And I'm like, okay, make it make sense, like like you're not making sense to me. I was trying to understand, old girl, but it was like, the truth is, you do want a relationship. Otherwise, what he's presenting to you doesn't offer any strings. So what's the problem? So she's just I was just like, girl, bye. So then the next morning, she wakes up. There's a note and a bottle of liquor that Gideon sent over with his number written on it. He's like, call me. She doesn't call him at that moment. Instead, they have a charity event to go to. And so her mother set up like this whole spa day for her and Carrie and her as well. So they go do the whole preparation thing. Carrie tells her mother about Gideon Cross. Of course, she's pissed because the mother, she loves men with money. So this is like the golden ticket for her. Like, oh my gosh, you got to. Now, Eva's not broke. And we find out a little bit later why she's not broke. But the mother has always had this thing with money. Like, she didn't date the father. She didn't marry Eva's dad because he was just a regular Joe Schmo. So he didn't have no money. So she can't do that. Her family, when she got pregnant with Eva, her family wanted her to not have the child. And she, of course, wanted to have the child, and so they disowned her. So then it became a thing of survival for her. Money was everything, and it's still that way. So she still has that same ideal she wants for her daughter. Like, this man is worth billions. She wants her daughter with this man, and that is only going to put pressure on Eva. So that was kind of messed up. Like, I know Carrie I think he was trying to force her hand in the situation because he knows the mother's going to push, but at the same time, it might be a reverse type of reaction to that. You know what I'm saying? Like, pushing her too much is going to piss her off. So maybe that's not the direction we want to go. Kind of let her feel her way through it. So I thought that was a little messy of Carrie for doing that. So Eva gets back home and she calls Gideon. He answers on the first ring and he's like, I'm around the corner. Tell the front desk I'm coming. I'm like, dang. And so he comes up and he was like, let's go to the event together. And she was like, no, at first. But then he was like, they started kissing and that was it. So he starts finger fucking her and telling her he can't wait any longer. He needs to make her come. And then he asks her if she's on birth control. And she's like, yes. And he's like, I'll give you a clean bill of health. He's like, if you show me yours. He's like, because I can't wait to come inside you. I was like, shit. That's hot. So he starts eating her pussy. He makes her come. And then he tells her, I'll be picking you up at 7. And wear the ankle bracelet. He's like, because I want to fuck you later with just that on. I love the way he talks. I love that dominant, I love it. So she spoke with her father. He lives in Oceanside, California. He's a cop. And so then Carrie had actually looked up Gideon, got a bunch of information, printed it out for her. So she looked through it and she sees this woman that has like brunette hair, and she sees all the women that he seems to have been photographed with are brunettes, and she's blonde. But she does see this one woman that's constantly there, so she's kind of like, who is this, so 7 o'clock rolls around and he picks her up. Oh, also she saw some information about like the family. He has like a stepfather, siblings and things like that.